The ER neon at St. Mary's Hospital flickered like an erratic heartbeat in the Boston dawn. Sarah Mitchell wiped down the triage counter for the third time. Automatic movement. A ritual that kept her anchored after 15 years at this same post. Friday, 2:17 a.m., the longest shift of the week. The automatic door hissed open. Sarah barely looked up. Another one. There was always another one. The man stumbled inside as if each step cost a decade of life. Disheveled gray beard, army uniform so worn it looked like it had been through an entire war. Maybe it had. The security guards were already shifting in their chairs, ready for another homeless veteran protocol. Routine. Sarah knew it well, but there was something different about this one. Something in the way he held his left shoulder, as if carrying an invisible weight. Something in his eyes, too blue for that face marked by sun and hunger. Name? Sarah grabbed the clipboard without looking, pen ready. James. The voice came out like sandpaper on old wood. James Crawford. The pen froze millimeters from the paper. 22 years. 22 years since that name had stopped being spoken aloud in the Mitchell house. 22 years since Sarah's mother stopped answering the phone every time it rang, waiting for the call that never came. 22 years since a 23-year-old soldier boarded a plane to Afghanistan, promising to be back for his little sister's 10th birthday. Sarah was 32 now, and Jamie was dead. Declared missing in action. Presumed dead. The folded flag still rested on the mantel of her mother's house, where it had rested until the day Margaret Mitchell closed her eyes for the last time, whispering the name of the son she never stopped waiting for. You? Said Crawford. Sarah's voice came out higher than intended. The man nodded, confused by the reaction. His fingers trembled against the counter. A tremor Sarah recognized. PTSD. Malnutrition. Maybe both. That's when she saw it. Hanging around his neck on a worn cord, frayed down to its last threads. A purple heart. The fluorescent light caught the bronze gleam for a second, and the initials engraved on the side. JRC James Robert Crawford. The hospital floor disappeared beneath Sarah's feet. The ER, with its moans, monitor beeps, smell of antiseptic and despair, vanished. She was back in the living room, 10 years old, watching her older brother stuff his freshly pressed uniform into his duffel bag. He had ruffled her hair. Take care of Mom, Peanut. I'll be back before you know it. 22 years. She had known every second. You? Sarah had to grip the edge of the counter. Are you from Boston? Those blue eyes. Jesus Christ. They were his eyes. They were exactly the eyes she saw in nightmares and dreams. Widened slightly. How do you know? Did you have... The words stuck in Sarah's throat. Did you have a sister? Sarah? The world stopped. James Robert Crawford, or the ghost wearing his name, his medal, his eyes, took a stumbling step back. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Sarah? It was barely a whisper. Sarah Mitchell? And then she saw. Really saw. Beneath the beard, beneath the scars, beneath 22 years of war and streets and loneliness, there was her brother. There was Jamie. Mom died waiting for you. The words came out before Sarah could stop them. Raw, true, devastating. Jamie collapsed. He didn't faint. Sarah would know the difference. He simply gave in, as if every muscle, every bone, every fragment of will that had kept him alive through 2 decades of hell had finally found permission to surrender. Sarah vaulted the counter. Didn't think. Knelt on the cold linoleum floor beside him, and her arms that had held hundreds of patients, consoled countless families, wrapped around the brother she had buried at 10 years old. He was sobbing, whole body shaking, hands clutching the back of her scrubs like it was the only real thing in the universe. I tried to come back, he cried against her shoulder. I tried, Sarah. I tried so hard. Around them, the ER fell silent. Patients stopped complaining about the wait. Doctors lowered their tablets. Security guards froze mid-step. And there, on the cold floor of a hospital that smelled of disinfectant and despair, Sarah Mitchell held her brother's ghost and finally, allowed herself to cry for the 22 years he'd been dead. Except he never had been. The staff break room smelled of old coffee and detergent. Sarah had managed to drag Jamie in there, away from the stairs, away from the questions she didn't know how to ask yet. Doctor? Patterson covered her shift without questioning. 15 years working together created that kind of grace. Jamie sat in the plastic chair like he'd forgotten how to use furniture. Back too straight, eyes too scanning. Sarah recognized the signs. She'd treated enough veterans to know that kind of permanent alert. The inability to lower your guard even in safety, if he felt safe at all. She placed a cup of water in front of him, watched his hand shake as he picked it up. Not from weakness, but from something deeper. Muscle memory of something she couldn't even imagine. 22 years, Sarah finally said, voice steadier than she felt. 22 years, Jamie. He didn't look at her, fixed his eyes on the cup as if it contained answers. I know. Mom planned your funeral. I wore a black dress. I was 12 years old and I wore a black dress to your funeral. The words came out hard now, sharp at the edges. There's a headstone, with your name, with your dates, with beloved son and brother. I know. You know. Sarah didn't mean to yell, but 22 years of grief had to go somewhere. You know, and you just… What? Decided you were better off dead? Decided we didn't deserve to know? Jamie finally looked at her, and what Sarah saw in those blue eyes, her eyes, the eyes of the brother who'd painted her nails hot pink before he deployed, made her stomach turn. Emptiness. There was an emptiness so deep there, she almost stepped back. I didn't decide anything, Sarah. Voice low, too controlled. I was in a hospital in Kandahar, then in a cell, then in a hole in the ground they called a prison camp. Then nowhere for so long I forgot my own name. The air left Sarah's lungs. When I finally got out, when I finally made it back to the States, he stopped, swallowed hard. It had been 7 years. 7 years, Sarah. I called home. The number was disconnected. I went to the house, different family living there. I went to the cemetery. He didn't need to finish. Sarah knew the story. Mom sold the house 3 years after Jamie was declared dead. Couldn't live among the memories anymore. Moved to a small apartment across town. Died 4 years later. Broken heart disguised as a heart attack. Why didn't you keep looking? Sarah whispered. Why didn't you keep searching? I did. His eyes finally met hers. I searched for 2 years. But you'd changed your name. Married, I assumed. I couldn't find you. And then he looked at his own hands. Calloused, scarred, trembling. Then I wasn't the brother you remembered anymore. I was this, and it seemed kinder to let the Jamie you loved stay dead. Sarah felt the tears, hot, angry, desperate, burn down her cheeks. You didn't have the right to decide that for me. I know. You didn't have the right. I know, Sarah. His voice broke. But look at me. Really look. She looked. Saw the man the boy had become. Saw the scars. Some visible, most not. Saw the way he flinched slightly when she raised her voice. Saw how his eyes never stopped mapping exits, threats, dangers. Saw what war did. What 22 years of hell carved into human flesh. I couldn't come home, Jamie whispered. Because home didn't exist anymore. And the person who was your brother, he died in that explosion in Kandahar, Sarah. I just forgot to lie down with him. The silence hung between them, heavy, painful, real. Sarah stood. Jamie tensed immediately, as if expecting her to leave, walk away, confirm that he was right about not deserving to be found. Instead, she pulled another chair over, sat beside him, didn't touch, respected the space he clearly needed, but stayed close enough that he would know. I didn't get married, she said softly. Mitchell is still my last name. I kept it because it was the last piece of you I had left. Jamie closed his eyes. And you're wrong about one thing, Sarah continued, voice firm now. The Jamie I loved didn't die in that explosion. He just got lost for a while. But he's here now. He's breathing. He's alive. Sarah, you're alive, Jamie. She finally touched, just her fingers on his hand, light, giving him total control to pull away if he needed to. And as long as you're breathing, as long as your heart is beating, you're my brother. Doesn't matter how many years passed. Doesn't matter what you had to do to survive. You are my brother. His tears fell silent. He turned his hand, slow, careful, and laced his fingers through hers. And for the first time in 22 years, James Robert Crawford allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, home still existed. 3 days later, Sarah stood on her apartment balcony, coffee going cold between her hands, watching the first Boston sunrise that actually felt new. Jamie was inside, sleeping, or at least pretending to sleep, on the couch she'd insisted he use. Over the past 3 days, she'd watched her brother eat real meals for the first time in who knows how long, watched him take a hot shower, watched him sit in an enclosed space without positioning himself with his back to the wall. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. Her phone buzzed. Text from Dr. Patterson. "How are things?" Sarah typed back, "Complicated, but real." The sliding door opened behind her. Jamie stepped out, hair still damp from the shower, wearing the clothes Sarah had bought at Walmart. Jeans and a gray t-shirt. Simple, civilian, almost normal. "You don't sleep," he said. It wasn't a question. "Inherited it from Mom." Sarah smiled slightly. She used to stay up too, waiting. Jamie flinched like he'd taken a punch. "Sorry," Sarah murmured. "I didn't mean—" "Don't." He sat in the chair beside her. "Don't apologize. I need to hear it. Need to know." Sarah nodded, drank the cold coffee, gathered courage. "She never stopped believing," she began softly. "Even after the army sent the notification. Even after the funeral. She kept your room exactly how you left it. Changed the sheets every week. Said it was so when you came back you'd have a clean bed." Jamie breathed deep, shaky. In the early years, she'd answer the phone before the first ring finished. Open the door before the bell stopped chiming. Look out the window every time a car passed. As Sarah wiped the tears starting to fall. "I used to get angry with her. Thought it was unhealthy. That she needed to accept and move on. You were a child. I was selfish." Sarah's voice broke. "Because I wanted my mom back. But she never fully came back. Part of her stayed at that airport, watching you leave. And another part died the day the notification came." Silence. Just the sounds of the city waking up. Cars. Distant voices. Life happening. "Did she talk about me?" Jamie finally asked. "At the end?" Sarah turned to look at him. "You were her last word, literally. I was holding her hand in the hospital. She opened her eyes, could barely see anymore, and said, 'He's coming home, Sarah. I know he is. My boy is coming home.'" Jamie covered his face with his hands. "And then she was gone," Sarah whispered. "Believing you were coming. Believing until the very last second." "I should have been there." Jamie's voice came out muffled, brittle. "I should have." "God, Sarah, I should have found a way." "You tried. Not hard enough." "Jamie." Sarah waited until he looked at her. "You survived hell. Literal absolute hell. You survived when most would have given up. And even through everything, the torture, the hunger, living on the streets, you never forgot. Never stopped being her son. My brother. But I was too late. You came." Sarah took his hand. "After 22 years you came. And maybe Mom isn't here to see it, but I am. And I'm not letting you disappear again." Jamie looked at their intertwined fingers, at hands that had held weapons, dug trenches, begged for food, now safe in the hands of the sister who grew up without him. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "Don't know how to be normal. How to be your brother again. Then we'll learn together." Sarah squeezed his hand. "One day at a time. 1 hour at a time. Whatever you need." "What if I mess it all up? What if I hurt you?" "Not physically, but—" He struggled with the words. "I'm not the same person, Sarah. I wake up screaming. I see things that aren't there. I know." Sarah interrupted gently. "I work in a Boston ER, Jamie. I treat veterans every week. PTSD isn't new to me. But I'm your brother." "Exactly." She smiled. Small, but real. "You're my brother, which means I'm not going anywhere. Doesn't matter how many bad nights. Doesn't matter how many flashbacks. Doesn't matter how long it takes." Jamie closed his eyes, breathed deep, and when he opened them again, Sarah saw something that hadn't been there before. Hope. Fragile, hesitant, terrifying for him, she could tell. But there it was. "She would have been so proud of you," he said softly. "Of the woman you became. Of the way you keep showing up. Keep caring. She'd be proud of both of us." Sarah stood, extended her hand. "Now come on. I'm taking you to the best breakfast in Boston. And then we're going to the VA. Get you the benefits you should have been getting 2 decades ago. Jamie looked at the extended hand. For a long moment, Sarah thought he might refuse, that he'd go back inside to the safety of isolation. But then he took her hand, let her pull him up. And together, brother and sister, survivors of different kinds of war, they walked inside, toward the beginning of something neither of them knew how to name yet, but that looked a lot like healing. 6 months later, Sarah was in the apartment kitchen making pancakes when she heard the key in the door. "I'm home!" Jamie's voice echoed down the hallway, clearer now, steadier. He still had bad days, still had nights when the nightmares won, but he also had days like this, normal days. He walked into the kitchen carrying grocery bags, beard trimmed, hair cut, still too thin, but not skeletal like he'd been. His eyes, those Crawford blue eyes, had something new in them now. Purpose. "How was the meeting?" Sarah asked, flipping a pancake. Jamie started putting away the groceries, a movement that had become ritual. He insisted on helping, on contributing, even though Sarah told him 1,000 times he didn't have to. "It was good," he answered. "Hard, but good. One of the guys had an episode. Tom, the one I told you about from Iraq. But we managed to bring him back. The Veterans Support Group. Jamie had started attending 3 months ago, when he finally felt like he could sit in a room full of people without wanting to run. Now he didn't just participate, he helped. "Proud of you," Sarah said simply. Jamie stopped, looked at her with that expression that still caught her by surprise sometimes. Gratitude mixed with disbelief, as if he still didn't fully believe this was real. "The group coordinator asked if I'd be interested in training to be a facilitator," he blurted out suddenly. "Said I have a gift for it, for helping others." Sarah turned off the stove, turned completely to face him. And I said I'd think about it." Jamie scratched the back of his neck. A nervous gesture she'd learned meant he was considering something big. It'd be volunteer at first, but eventually it could become paid work, helping other veterans find their way back. "Jamie, that's amazing. I'd also go to college. The VA would cover it. Psychology, maybe, or social work." He was talking faster now, excited in a way Sarah hadn't seen in months. "It wouldn't be quick, would take years, but I could really make a difference. Could help guys like me who got lost." Sarah crossed the kitchen, hugged her brother tight, felt him hesitate for just a second, still not completely comfortable with touch, before hugging back. "Mom would have loved this," she murmured against his shoulder. "Seeing you transform everything you went through into something that helps others." Jamie pulled back, wiped his eyes quickly. "You think I can do it?" "I know you can." Sarah held his shoulders. "You survived the impossible, Jamie. College is going to be a piece of cake." He laughed, a rare, precious sound. Sarah treasured each laugh like gold. The oven timer beeped. Sarah went back to the pancakes. Jamie finished putting away the groceries. Synchronized movement, comfortable, family. "Hey, Sarah," Jamie said after a moment. I was thinking, maybe we could visit the cemetery on her anniversary next month." Sarah stopped. They'd carefully avoided this subject for the past 6 months. Mom's grave, Jamie's headstone, all that weight. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. Jamie nodded. "I need to talk to her, even if it's just a stone. Need to say I'm sorry, that I came back, that I'm trying. You don't need to apologize to her, Jamie. I know." He looked out the window. Boston stretched out there, the city that had seen them born, grow up, separate, and finally find each other again. "But I want to, and I want to introduce her to the incredible woman you've become. Want her to know that you saved me." The tears came too fast for Sarah to stop. "We saved each other." "Yeah." Jamie smiled, small, but genuine. "We saved each other." They ate pancakes at the small kitchen table, talked about normal things. Sarah's work, Jamie's group, the ridiculous episode of the show they were watching. Everyday life. Precious exactly because it was mundane. Afterward, Jamie washed dishes while Sarah dried. Established ritual. "Thank you," he said suddenly. "For what? For not giving up on me. For letting me come home even when I didn't know I still had one." Sarah put the last plate in the cabinet, turned to her brother, to the man war tried to break but couldn't completely destroy, to the family she thought she'd lost but was, against all odds, Right there. You always had a home, Jamie. You just needed to find your way back. He pulled her into another hug, longer this time, firmer, and there in a small Boston apartment, with clean dishes and cooling coffee and sunlight streaming through the window. Two people that life tried to permanently separate finally understood the truth. Family isn't about never getting lost. It's about always finding your way back, no matter how long it takes, no matter what path you have to walk. In the end, what matters is coming home. And James Robert Crawford, veteran, survivor, brother, had finally come home.